What makes ABA Revolution different from anything you've ever built before?
Okay, well, this goes back about 15 years, and I was one of the first individuals to start center-based ABA. And at the time, things were moving pretty quickly. This was around 2017, and all of a sudden there was a great deal of interest in ABA centers, primarily from private equity firms.
Yeah.
And I had an offer in 2020, right before the pandemic shut everything down, to sell the company. I sold it, I retired, and then I had some health issues. But then when I was spending time in my little cabin in Maine, I began to really hear about a lot of problems in the whole ABA space. A dear friend who said to me, he said, I think we can do this better. And I said, well, I don't necessarily want to get into that whole field and compete against everything that's going on, but if there's a way that we can do it better, then I'm more than happy to do that. So my focus really became on quality. I became so focused on how do you consistently get the best outcomes. And it's pretty simple. I mean, I don't think that this takes a great deal of thought. It's in the staff you hire. And if you are able to hire excellent staff and you're able to keep them, then you have the opportunity to produce great outcomes. Right now in this field, unfortunately, we are seeing turnover on an annual basis of between 50 and 100%. And I like to think back, I was a teacher a long time ago. I taught second grade, and I taught for 3 years in a rural community, a small school. There were two classrooms per grade. And in the 3 years I was there, we did not lose one teacher. So when you brought your kid to school, you knew September that was going to be your teacher, October was going to be your teacher, November. Now, what I'm hearing over and over again is that parents are seeing different therapists on a monthly basis, and they don't know actually who their therapist is, and they don't know what their qualifications are. So to me, this was just common sense. You just have to hire quality people that are dedicated to this field. That's it, plain and simple.
Well, and I think that it also causes disruptions in the actual care and decreases in the actual quality that the child gets in services because it's inconsistent. They don't know the history. They don't know the child. They don't know the family when it's changing every
And
month or
and the
every quarter
therapist
or every
doesn't
week.
know the child. And in many cases, the therapist is not qualified. They're not even
Yeah.
licensed in a lot of cases. They're being trained on the spot. And there's a great deal of fallout also, that a lot of people were not meant to be in this field. But there's a simple solution to all of this, which thus the name ABA Revolution. The simple solution is pay people more. That's it. This is not rocket science. Just pay people more money, create more demand for the jobs. That's it.
Yep.
That's my message to everybody.
I mean, it makes complete sense. It makes complete sense. Not a message that a lot of the groups that are enjoying good profits really want to hear all the time, but that makes sense. That
Well,
makes
it
sense.
depends on what your motives are.
True. True. If it's just about the bottom line, then it's better to pay people cheap and just run them through
Yeah, and
all the
and
time,
and
at least for the short term.
in the short term, maybe the investors do well, maybe the management team does well, but in the end, it's the kids that are being shortchanged.
Absolutely, and that is the big problem. So, tell me more about what inspired your people first approach, and how do you expect that to play out in this new venture in kind of the day to day operations of the office?
So I don't want to sound like a union organizer because I'm actually an owner, but I probably would have been a good union organizer. I think the staff is the most important part. The quality of the staff is by far the most important part. And I have spent a great deal of time. I actually personally interview all of the new staff members. I mean, we're looking for people that are skilled, first of all, who are dedicated to this and who actually know how to work with other people. And we're looking for people that are going to stick around. That's one of the questions that I ask is what's your career path? Not everybody is becoming a BCBA. So there are people that actually like this field and who want to be in this field, but they need to make a living wage. So when I started looking at how to model this out, that was the first thing I looked at was, is there a way that we can pay people significantly more money and still have a company that will exist? And there is a way. Just don't make as much money. I mean, that's it. That's the bottom line. First of all, we don't have investors, but you're not going to give the kind of returns that are expected, when you're paying people below a living wage. One of the things that I mentioned on our website is that MIT every couple of years comes out with a cost of living calculator. And Cook County, where I am, which is where Chicago is, for a single person to be considered to make a living wage, the amount is $49,000. That was done 2 years ago before all the rents and all the food and everything went up. The average pay that I'm seeing out there, and it's not even guaranteed, it's between $35,000 and $40,000 a year. So the RBTs, who I think are critical to all of this, are not being paid a living wage, and there's something wrong with that. I consider myself staff-centric. I want our staff to be paid a living wage. I want them, when they go home at the end of the day, to feel like they can pay their bills, that they can even save some money, and then be excited about coming to work the next day.
Yeah. And not have to look for another position that pays 20 cents an hour more.
Right, and also to not be punished when a child is absent. I just find it's stunning to me that anyone would ask somebody to come into work, and then if the child doesn't show up, it's on them as opposed to on the company. And I can't tell you how many people have told me they sometimes come in for work and they get 1 hour or 2 hours of work, and then they're told to go home. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's no wonder that turnover is so high with those kind of conditions.
Well, it's high, but then you also have so much recruitment going on. I'm talking primarily about RBTs. There's also a tremendous amount of recruitment for BCBAs, but RBTs tend to switch positions for another $1 an hour. So you have this constant flow. I can't think of any other industry, especially that is this important, that has this kind of problem.
Yeah, I would agree. We've worked in several industries before we specialized in behavioral health, and now we only do ABA and addiction treatment groups, basically. And it's shocking. It's shocking how bad staffing is.
The one thing that I'm beginning to hear, and I'm hearing it from RBTs, is that parents are beginning to notice. And I don't know what the response to that is going to be, but parents are beginning to understand that their kid is not seeing the same therapist on a consistent basis, nor I've talked to RBTs now who don't even have a BCBA supervisor. To me, it's unfathomable. I don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's surprising that families are tolerating it, in my opinion. It's also surprising that payers are tolerating it.
Well, I think the bigger issue is the payers. I think and we're beginning to see some pushback, but I think that, the changes that are coming, and I think the payers were playing a little bit of catch up with this, but I think that what's coming down the road is that the payers are going to demand quality, and I don't know if they know how to measure that yet. Right now, and I've said this on many occasions, I feel especially like the large box operators, the large box providers are maybe one step above a preschool, if that. And the payers are paying an awful lot of money for that. I think they're going to have to just raise the standards.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that raising the standards and improving quality of care is really, really important to you. What are some of the tech stacks or technology incorporations that you're planning to build into your services?
A couple of examples. I did some research and we bought a fairly expensive robot from Europe, from Luxembourg, called QT Robot, which is designed specifically to work with young kids with autism. And it works on emotional responses. It works on just stuff that you would see normally in an ABA session. So we're trying that out. We've also introduced a robot area in our center because the studies show that kids tend to, at least in the beginning, respond much better to a robot than to a human. Now, I'm not saying that the robots are going to replace the humans, but we're willing to go out on the edge a little bit. We're willing to see how that works. I'm also fascinated by, and I don't think it's going to replace it, I'm fascinated by AI and how AI is going to measure things and how treatment plans are going to be enhanced by using AI. I'm not saying that that's a cure-all, but I think in a lot of cases, it might bring some more consistency to the field. We have the luxury to do this. And we're about to open a fairly large center, which I had been a little bit reluctant to do. We're about to open a fairly large center that essentially what I've done is I've taken what you would normally find in a school and brought it into a center. So we have an art space, we have a music space, we have a full grocery store, we have a library, we have a classroom. We have all of these things in our center. They're all divided up. So we're going to really introduce this whole idea of real experiential learning, where the kids are going to be in these environments and we're going to work with them and hopefully it'll be easier for them to adapt outside of our centers. But we're not doing anything traditionally.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What's another norm in the ABA industry that you think we should do away with?
Another norm. Well, I think there's some bad practices. I don't think anybody should ever be compensated by the number of hours that they produce. I mean, that's unethical. Doctors are not paid to do surgeries that are not necessary. I think it all has to be accountable to what the child needs. If you can structure the day in a way where the child gets that much time in terms of therapy, that's great. But there should never be an incentive to produce more hours. I think that's totally unethical. The other part that I think needs to be corrected is that I do not think any ABA provider should ever be doing an assessment in terms of whether a kid has autism or not. I think that's self-serving. I hope all of that stops. You should never be compensated to do an assessment on whether a child has autism or not. And that seems to be commonplace now, which I don't get for the life of me.
And there's a struggle too, because parents often want it because they think that their kid has autism and they want to get tested and approved, but a lot of the actual testing and assessment centers are booked out for weeks and weeks and weeks.
There does need to be an arm's length agreement. You cannot do an assessment on a child and then recommend that child come to your center. That crosses the line. There can be referral sources, but then those referral sources should not be compensated either. So I think there needs to be some house cleaning. Yeah. I pay attention to all of the conferences that take place, and all the conferences seem to focus on clinical information and new things. But the elephant in the room is the turnover and some of the self-promotion. And that stuff just needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be objective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes complete sense. I'm not a provider, right? But I'm in providers' businesses all day long, and I see a lot of these issues as well. It makes complete sense. You're preaching to the choir, I think, in a lot of those ways.
And in the end, it's not going to change until the compensation structure changes. I think the payers have the right idea. I think the payers meant to be able to pay employees a decent living. I think it's the providers who have taken that away. And until that corrects itself, you're going to see chaos in this whole field.
Absolutely.
And there's a huge expansion going on. Everybody is trying to expand as quickly as possible, and nobody is talking about increasing pay. Except me.
Which is good. It's good to be, I think in most industries, but especially in the ABA space, it's good to stick out for something. It's good to be known for something.
Well, it might take some time. I don't know how many years it's going to take, but at some point, I do believe there is going to be a real big shakeout in this field, and that quality is going to come to the surface. Right now, quality is not at the top. It's your run rate is at the top, not the quality. And I do believe that it's the parents and the kids who are being shortchanged.
Agreed completely.
And the RBT.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're being shortchanged in actual dollars, right? That's the one you can quantify that.
How do you pay somebody a wage where they can't really pay their bills? I don't get it.
Mm-hmm. While at the same time pocketing fairly large compensations for every hour they work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally see it. I totally agree.